Okay, I have a confession to make. I was that person. Years ago, when I worked my corporate job, I was a market research session, and as I chatted with our super cool market research vendor, our moderator, I asked her, "Where are you from?" To which she responded, "Originally, I'm from Texas." Then I went into the totally uncool thing of trying to understand her Asian heritage and asked her where her family was from, and just being confused every time she said some place in the US. It was totally cringeworthy, and I wish I could find her and go back and apologize for my ignorance and the microaggressions I hurled against her that day with my questioning. Thankfully, a while later, I had a friend and colleague who was of Korean descent who lovingly educated me on why my comments were inappropriate because I truly did not understand. Now I do, thankfully. There's even a whole comedy skit that plays out this scenario I just described because unfortunately it happens all too often. I'll link it up in the show notes for you in case you haven't seen it. So I share this story with you today to highlight this phenomenon where it seems like a lot of us bumble all over ourselves when it comes time to interact with people who are different from us. I've done it, and I'm sure you've done it, and we all know people who've done it. But there is hope for all of us. And that's really what this episode is all about. As we're working to build inclusive brands that attract and retain a bigger, more diverse, and fiercely loyal customer base, we're going to have to interact with people who are different from us to get there. And it will be pretty difficult to achieve the results we desire if we're offending people right and left because we don't know how to effectively engage with people who we perceive to be different. So I brought in reinforcements to help with this. A true gem, Topsie Vande, an emotional intelligence and mindset coach and licensed therapist. After this short break, you're going to hear my very important and transformational chat with Topsie. Buckle up. This is a good one. Did you know that most businesses only use 20% of their data? That's like reading a book with most of the pages torn out or paying for a coffee that's just 1/5 full. Point is, you miss a lot unless you use HubSpot. Their customer platform gives you access to the data you need to grow your business. The insights trapped in emails, call logs, and transcripts, all that unstructured data that makes all the difference. Because when you know more, you grow more. And when you get a full cup of coffee, you can do more too. But I digress. Visit HubSpot.com today. Topsy, I'm so excited you're here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so pumped to be here, Sonia. Thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast. I'm excited to jam out on this topic.
That we are going to do. All right. So I know you, I adore you, but the people don't yet, right? So who are you and what do you do?
Hello, everybody. I am Topsie Vande. I am an emotional intelligence and psychological safety consultant and a licensed psychotherapist. I partner with companies to transform their workplace culture. My expertise lies in training and coaching corporate leaders in their teams and identifying and using EQ skills to foster strong team relationships, retain talent, and create a culture of well-being.
Okay, so we're already off track because I was just talking to a friend who works at a big Fortune 500 company. And one of the things that he told me was that his company has now made a list of words that cannot be said. And one of those things was psychological safety.
Oh, this is intriguing.
Yeah. So that you just said it and it just popped up back to my mind. So I wanted to find out, like, can you just, for the people who don't know what psychological safety is,
Wow.
can you just say, like, what is it? And like,
Wow.
just your initial response to that.
Yeah, I'm disgusted. But anyways, so psychological safety is the culture that you create when you allow for people to feel safe to ask questions, feel safe to contribute, and they feel like they belong. And it's through cultivating this environment where people are allowed to be curious and they're allowed to, say things that are maybe go against the norm. And you create that environment of understanding, welcoming, and just allowing for people to just be human and creating a safe space for them to do it. So it's basically creating a safe space for people to be able to ask questions, to be able to contribute, to be able to disagree. and you
Yeah.
cultivate an environment like that, which a lot of environments inherently are not that way.
Yeah.
So you have to work at it.
So that we are on track, right? Like, because I'm finding a way to bring it back. I imagine that it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to acknowledge that you don't have a culture that is filled with psychological safety. Or so maybe people are like, we don't want to say this word because
Yeah.
that means that we're acknowledging that it might not exist here.
Yes,
Is that,
I think that that's accurate because that's the only reason why I could imagine that a corporate environment would be against that word. And maybe, and I do think that sometimes there's ignorance attached to that. Sometimes there's this culture of, it's the big bad word, and if you say it, everyone else is going to start talking about how they don't feel safe, and so they want to avoid that group think, and so they think that
yeah.
by avoiding that group think, they can just basically say these words are not allowed here, when really that's the opposite of psychological safety,
Yeah.
right? People don't feel safe when they aren't safe to express. So they're actually proving the point.
Right, right, right. They're actually proving that
Wow.
they're not a psychologically
Geographically
safe
safe
environment.
space, right? And I think that the same can be said for environments where you can't say the word DEI. What freaking world are we living in where
Yeah,
that actually on so before we get completely off track, I pitched this chamber of commerce to speak, and they're hiring me to speak. Well,
nice.
one thing that she said was the theme of the event she wanted to hire me for was inclusivity. And I said, "Oh, well, that's amazing." Typically, I hear about inclusivity in or associations and organizations through the lens of DEI. So is that kind of
Hmm.
like where that's coming from, like the desire to include like all voices, all people, all
Yeah.
backgrounds? She said yes, and we have gotten so much pushback when we had to change our mission to be more about inclusivity because yes, it's already starting because donors and people were like, sending angry emails about the word uh, DEI. So
Wow.
they expressed feeling very, not really agreeing with that, but they work
Yeah.
for the organization. So what are they supposed to do? So
Yeah.
that was really sad. And they felt like, that word is very, it's a touchy word right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Which is why we're having this conversation, which is why we're sitting here today,
yeah,
right? And we
absolutely.
continue to do the work, even though sometimes it may feel like we're going backwards. I think that just means it's a sign
Yes,
of the progress that we're making, right?
100%.
All right. So, can you just explain more in detail so we're on the same page about what emotional intelligence is and your take on why it's important to have when we're interacting with others, and particularly from a business standpoint?
Yeah, so emotional intelligence is a set of skills, research backed, science backed, evidence based skills that help us better perceive, understand, and manage the emotions in ourselves and from others. And so when we understand how to effectively respond to the emotions of the people around us, this is when you know that you are cultivating a psychologically safe space. And so I believe EQ is one of the vehicles to us being able to have that type of environment in our work, in the corporate world, and just in business. When people understand how to interact and respond to what people are saying to them and how they're, reacting to things, you can kind of filter that through the lens of EQ, and it makes it honestly a lot less personal. Even if it feels personal, it feels a lot more
Yeah.
digestible, like, oh, I understand why they responded that way because of the way I phrased that sentence or the way I phrased that question, etc.
Yeah. What does having emotional intelligence look like from a brand and a marketing perspective? Because we're still dealing with people at the end of the day, right? So,
Yes, absolutely. So, what I think from a brand and a marketing perspective, it means that you connect with consumers on a deeper level beyond just the functional benefits of whatever it is that you're selling. So, it means that you understand their underlying emotional needs, their pain, their desires, right? And showing how you empathize as a company, how you fundamentally empathize with what your consumers need, want, feel, desire. And
Yeah.
so this translates to marketing that aims to be emotionally resonant, over just stating this is the benefit that this product will have for you. So in that way, you're personalizing it and you're making them feel seen and heard and cared for. And so I think, as an example, emotionally intelligent brand, or one that's demonstrating, sorry, the emotional intelligence that they might focus on, perhaps an ad showing like meaningful moments in a person's life using the product, instead of just showcasing the specifics and all of the ways in which it helps. Or they might ensure that the brand messaging reflects shared values that they have with the target consumers, instead of just defaulting to just a hard sell. And so from the end consumer standpoint, an emotionally intelligent brand feels like a company that genuinely cares about playing a positive role in the customer's life, and the interactions feel based on listening rather than just, a robotic, transactions. And so
Yeah.
the brand really thinks of their customers as being, with humans with emotions versus just data points, and versus a means to an end.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. One of the reasons why I really wanted to sit down with you for the show is that I keep finding that it seems like whenever we're interacting with people who are different from us, whether that is people that we encounter, that we meet socially, whether it's with our coworkers, and more as we're engaging different consumers,
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding that it seems like whenever we're talking to people different, it's like we lose a sense of how to engage and interact with people. I give this example a lot when I'm giving my talks, where I call this guy, I like your weave guy. And it's whenever I was in a tango class with someone that I had never met. And he says to me, like, as I rotated to him for a dance partner, he's like, "Oh, I like your weave." And I was just like, oh, that for me, that felt like a very emotionally
Yeah.
unintelligent, culturally unaware way of interacting. But I found myself even doing that. Like, let's say I came across someone who spoke Spanish, like they were Latino, and I felt the need to suddenly make it known that I spoke Spanish too, right? Like, and I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
what is it that it just feels like whenever you're talking to someone, sometimes from a different culture, it's like
Yeah.
you lose all sense
Yes.
of like, this is how you act versus don't, right? Like it just becomes like this bit of, so I
Yeah.
wanted to come and sit and chat with you, because I feel like maybe all of us have been guilty of this in some way,
100%.
shape, or form when talking to someone different from us.
Oh, 100%. I actually, there's a word for it and I can't think of it, but this is just really quick, but I think it goes along with your point. I love to watch like comedy. I think that life, we're just meant
Yeah.
to have joy. And I love to, as much like I like to radiate joy. So that means I have to absorb a lot of things that bring me joy. And there was this skit about this guy that every time he talks to a person of a different culture, he feels the need not in like a condescending way, but like copy their accent. So like,
Yes, I see this. Yes.
so I can't remember what that's called. There's a word for it, but it's almost like you feel like they
Mm-hmm.
understand you better if you say it
Yeah.
in the way that they're accustomed to saying it. And so that just reminded me of that. But what I think, as a therapist, this is what I think. As a coach and a consultant, here's what I think. I think because we want to relate to people and we want them to
Mm-hmm.
see that we respect them, that we understand them, that we're familiar with them. So it becomes this really weird way of being familiar and showing like, hey, right? For instance, this isn't okay, but the guy that said nice weave, in his mind, that was his only like relational point to you. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, a lot of Black women wear weave, so she must be wearing a weave, and so she must like
Yeah.
her weave
Yeah.
to be complimented on. Not realizing that that could be very offensive and presumptive, and not every Black woman wears
Yeah.
weave, right? And so
Right.
I think the same can be said of speaking to people where we know that we're maybe not fluent in the language, but that's our only source of real connection. Like, oh, I do speak Spanish sometimes, or I speak enough to get by, or I lived in another country where Spanish was the main. And so we feel like that's our connection point. And so I think that that
Yeah.
kind of can make us use that as the bridge to a conversation and to relatability when we get to relate on being human.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we forget that in those situations. Like, oh, let me go to the first thing that I know that this person can relate to me on. And it's like, well, they can relate to being a human and
Right.
having emotions, you know? And so I think that that's kind of organically what happens.
Yeah. So it's kind of like whenever we're trying to find something about the relate to people, I think that sometimes the default is, if I understand correctly, what you're saying is the
Yeah.
default is we go directly to the thing that makes us different, that we
Hmm.
feel like is an obvious thing
Yes.
versus completely overlooking the things
Yes.
about us that might be the same.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's what I think. That's why I think that sometimes it's inherently not malicious, you
Yeah.
know. I think that there are times where maybe it is, right? But
Okay.
I think large and in part,
Yeah.
it's just this this ignorance that occurs when we're put in situations where we're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the first thing we do is to default back to what we believe makes us, the same as them,
Yeah.
when that's not accurate.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. I think that when we look at it from that perspective, like, oh, we feel like this is what's going to make them respect me more.
Yeah.
This is what's going to make them feel like they have something in common with me. Hey, look, I'm cool. I'm safe. I respect your
Yeah.
culture. You get what I'm saying? But it's like
Yeah.
we go back to our basic primal desires of being belonging and acceptance.
Right. But we're doing it and having the opposite impact
Yes.
because we're doing it in a very culturally probably unintelligent and emotionally in unintelligent way.
Well, I think we go back to our primal instinct.
Yeah.
I don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
I don't want to look ignorant.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I've got another podcast recommendation for you. It's Augmenters, hosted by Julie Meyer and Jimmy Edgerton, and it's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. So on this show, Julie and Jimmy dive into mentoring and explore ways to augment and refresh the mentoring environment. They're using 8 core principles that weave relevant spirit guides and diverse guests, and Julie and Jimmy use a lot of humor and practical tips to help mentors and mentees get further faster together. There's so many great episodes to tune into for this show, but one that you might find especially interesting is their latest episode, number 120, Mentoring Across Gender, Men as Allies and Mentors. Listen to Augmenters wherever you get your podcasts. So how can we, because I think a way to not look stupid or ignorant and to actually authentically relate to people, emotional intelligence is a big part of that. So how do we get to a
Mhm.
point, like how do you increase your degree of emotional intelligence? Can you?
Yes, you can. You can. The beautiful thing about EQ, this is why I don't use language like high EQ, low EQ. Not because, I don't, well, I guess like the way that my training is with it, that's not the language to use because it can be developed. And
Okay.
so, and pretty much anybody can develop it. It depends on obviously like your culture, your level of, ability to understand and perceive things, whatever, but everybody can develop EQ. To what
Yeah.
degree? That varies, right? But
Yeah.
everybody can develop it. So, what I would say is number one, self reflection gets to be your best friend, not rumination, right?
Yeah.
So, I think I created some content around how unhelpful rumination can be because it makes you second guess everything that you do, right? And
Yeah.
so, I think there's this balance of self reflection. If somebody were to have said that to me, how would I feel? How would I respond? And then think of, okay, what does that ideal situation look like of what you can do next time? And
Yeah.
then boom, move on to something else. Don't give it so much real estate in your brain that now you start to lose complete confidence in speaking to people. Acknowledge, where you might fall short. Acknowledge where you need more practice. Do you need more practice in being around cultures different than your own on a daily,
Yeah.
weekly, monthly basis? How can you increase that competence and increase your level of comfort with whatever social group, whatever ethnic group, right? Whatever language, how can you increase your level of comfort with that so that your default isn't to draw attention to how you're the same as them? Your default is to engage with them the same way you would engage with anyone else. And so I think self-reflection gets to be your best friend, and being able to observe your emotions and your interactions without putting a judgment on it is going to be
Okay.
huge. So saying, I was so stupid, I was so dumb, I was so uneducated, I was so ignorant. Labeling yourself isn't the best way to get you to learn, right? So,
Yeah.
what if you say, although that interaction may not have reflected best on who I am as a person, that's not the sum totality of who I am.
Yeah.
That doesn't get to dictate who you are.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that self reflection is huge, and doing it without judgment is a way to do it in a way that helps you actually increase your EQ. Really reflecting on what situations do you need to put yourself more in that can help you flex that ability to feel uncomfortable in situations that you're not accustomed to being, the one that's maybe different than the dominant cultural group, or
Yeah.
ethnic group inside of that situation. And ask more questions. I think that we ask open-ended questions to expand your understanding, even if you don't agree. So I think that is something that we're losing,
Hmm.
in my opinion, these days, is the ability to ask questions and expand your understanding of what someone's perspective might be, even if you don't agree with their perception on a topic. And I think a good way to do that is to talk about topics that you might tend to avoid
Yeah.
with people, because I think that that's where tolerance comes in. Even if you don't agree with them, even if you know you'll never want to be in the same room with them again, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to just hear what their worldview is and what shaped it. And what about you? Like, what do you get to improve about? Because we all have our own stuff. And so I think that that's powerful. And then I think role playing scenarios, if you're either in your head or with someone close to you, with your partner, if you have one, with a close friend, of what you want to do different next time. It might seem so
Yeah.
stupid and it might feel silly, but it's not, right? Like, okay, for instance, we do it with anything else. Like, I might role play how I'm going to deliver my speech,
Yeah.
to my husband. I did that for my last keynote. For 45 minutes, that man sat and listened to me deliver it the way that I did,
Yeah.
because I needed to see myself in action. And so having that person that you trust that can help you role play these uncomfortable situations, it really helps you grow, and it helps you become quicker at thinking on your feet. Like, okay,
Yeah.
what are the default things that I can say in that moment that can help me, feel more comfortable, but also it kind of become your safety blanket. Like, okay, I can ask these questions, and these questions feel really good for me to ask, and here's how I can make that situation not so uncomfortable. What
Yeah.
if I decided to say, how was your day? What are you eating for dinner? What are your favorite foods? Instead of defaulting to believing that you already know the answers that they're going to give, which is what happens
Yeah.
when we assume that person is going to appreciate the way in which we're trying to interact with them. We can just
Yeah.
default more to curiosity.
Yeah.
What
Oh,
if we
such
decided to ask
practical.
questions?
Such practical
Yeah,
advice.
yeah,
I love it. Okay. I
yeah.
wanna play a little game here and see what your thoughts
Okay,
are. Let's do true or false.
okay.
There's no right answer here, right? Like true or false. I just want to hear your perspective.
Hmm.
Cultural intelligence increases emotional intelligence.
True. Yep, true.
Why do you say that?
I think that when you're exposed to cultures different than your own, and you understand their norms, you understand their belief systems, it makes you more tolerant I think. And it also makes you more understanding and empathetic. And when you have empathy and when you understand, naturally your EQ skills are going to be even more enhanced
Yeah.
because you have a deeper level layer of understanding than what a lot of people
Okay.
might have. So I think that cultural intelligence definitely increases it.
Okay. All right. This one is kind of related, but slightly different. True or false? Proximity increases emotional intelligence.
Yes, yes, true. I
Okay.
think that when you are in relationship with people and the more interaction that you have with those people, whether they are of a different background than you, culture than you, they speak a different language than you, they have a different job than you, that's a big one, that's a huge one, right?
Yeah.
I think that when you even think about it in terms of people who do sex work, if you are not exposed to people who have had to do that
Yeah.
or who currently do that, and if you're only exposed to them in a certain context that isn't necessarily in your mind positive, then you're going to have a negative perception of the people who stereotypically do sex work. So I think I just
Yeah.
brought that up as an example because I think even being an online business owner, it's been so cool to be in relationship with people from all different walks of life, like
Yeah.
educated people who choose to do sex work and they see that as their way of feeling empowered and feeling, and I get to respect them as human beings who are autonomous and who are doing this because they want to, not because they're being made to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think that your proximity really does shape your ability to demonstrate EQ.
Yeah. So overall, we need to do a better job of spending time with people who are different from us, and we'll be less prone to all these mistakes that we were talking about earlier
Yes.
because our
Yes.
perspective shifts. Love it. Okay. Can you
Yes.
tell me about a time when a brand made you feel like you belonged?
Oh, yeah. I have felt that way with a lot of the West African clothing brands that have been coming out. I'm Nigerian and it's just so beautiful to see the marketing that they do. All of the models that they choose are West African. They're so gorgeous. They're beautiful. The colors they choose, and the fabrics that they choose. They're just so reflective of the motherland. And so I feel like the marketing that a lot of these Nigerian, West African, but American based brands, people like me who are Nigerian or Nigerian American and who want to create clothing that celebrates our culture, I think that makes me feel like I belong, that I'm a part of a bigger community. And
Very cool.
so I would say that that's a really good example. And it makes me
Yeah.
want to buy from them and encourage everyone to buy from them, not just my African friends, but everyone. Like, you love color, you love patterns. Like, this is a really good website for you to purchase from.
Yeah, I think it does a lot for representation as well because it kind of
Yes.
changes your thoughts even around what brands look like, what successful brands look like, where you buy it, how you buy it, who you buy it
Yes.
from. So it just changes a lot.
100%. It does. It does.
Yeah.
And it makes me smile. And, I think I remember 10 years ago wanting to see more brands like that. And that had really good fabrics and, who cared about where they sourced their materials. And so it's been really cool to see the resurgence of that and that being more readily available to the general public. It's a beautiful thing because it wasn't always that way.
Love it. Love it. Topsy, this has been so much fun. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and your work and like just soak in all that you have to share with us? Because I
Oh,
think we're probably making mistakes every day, all day, right? So
oh yeah, we make mistakes every day, all day, and it's not about our mistakes, it's how we learn from them, and it's about how we allow ourselves to be fully human. So you can follow me on LinkedIn at Topsy Vande, Topsie. I think the link will be in the show notes.
Yes.
I'll send the link to my LinkedIn to you. And then you can go to topsievandenbosch.com / consulting if you're interested in that. I'm also a coach for business owners. And so my website it's fun, it's happy, it's joyful, it's colorful, it's super me. And you follow me on Instagram at topsievandenbosch.com and join my email list, topsievandenbosch.com / freebie if you're a business owner, and you'll hear from me. I'm getting ready to launch some workshops on EQ skills and psychological safety skills. So I'm excited. So yeah, you get to follow along in all those different channels and connect with me there.
Yeah. One of the things I love about your content is it's not like anybody else's. Like it is fun, right?
Oh,
like
thank you.
it is fun. And you take topics that some people might feel are like heavy or clinical or whatever. And they are a hoot and a riot. And I think you have a gift in choosing gifts.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I received that. That. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much.
Yes. All right. Any parting words of wisdom for marketers and business leaders who want to be more emotionally intelligent in their lives, period, but in a way that it will also help translate into what they're doing at work?
Yeah. Don't take yourself so seriously. You're going to make mistakes. And I think embracing your perfections, that's a part of what makes you human. That's what makes us human. And so I think releasing the need to be perfect, you're going to get it wrong. And it gets to be okay. You're going to survive. You're going to be fine. 5 years from now, a week from now, people won't remember.
Yeah.
Right. They'll remember how you made them feel, but even that will fade. And so you get to reinvent yourself every single day.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say about EQ. We're not going to always get it right. We'll probably get it wrong more than we get it right. But the work is in continuing to get up and choose to do it every single day. And that
very
counts.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much, Topsie, for getting us together today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Topsie had so many cool things to share. And if you'll let it, the wisdom she shared can totally transform the way you think, perceive, and interact with others, which will ultimately enable us to build stronger and more authentic relationships. But we all need this to be better at our work, especially in the world of inclusive marketing. So I'm curious, what was your key takeaway from this chat? Do let me know. Let's talk about it on social or drop me an email. I'd love to continue the conversation with you about this. If you like this show, please do share it with a friend, colleague, in your network, and leave a rating and review for it in your podcast player of choice. It really does go a long way toward helping more people discover the show, which I like to think helps us all build a more inclusive world. Also, are you getting the Inclusion in Marketing newsletter? Each week, I send stories, news, tips, and other insights to help you grow by building an inclusive brand. Go to inclusioninmarketing.com / newsletter to get signed up. I'll drop a link to it in the show notes for you so you can access it easily. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves to have a place where they belong. Let's use our individual and collective power to ensure more people feel like they do. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you soon.